Hi there, welcome to the Kenny Veach M Cave mystery, today with a map analysis to prove why Kenny Veach did not end his life out there. Whilst it's been pushed so heavily by the general public, outsiders who don't know about my channel and haven't done further research, most people nod their heads to a so-called mental health professional known as Sharon Pilgrim, who just so happens to be the supposed girlfriend or ex-girlfriend to Kenny Veach. But at the time, Sharon Pilgrim, you could interpret it, didn't do enough to look after Kenny, and other people have suspicious outlooks as well. But at the end of the day, just based on common sense and how it's been described to us by Red Rock Search and Rescue, the whole scent situation, when piecing it all together, it's just not really possible that he would have ended his life out there due to where his scent ended at. And even if you wanted to track back, it didn't go in any other ways or angles. Unless Red Rock is lying and hiding secrets, and if that ever came out as true, well then there's something even more darker going on. But you'd hope to believe in the basic report and the news coverage at the time. And before we go any further, I just want to say welcome if you're currently here during this live premiere. Share your thoughts and reactions in the chat box on the right side of the screen at any point in time. And for those watching on catch up, be sure to drop your comments, thoughts, questions, answers, theories down below under the video, because that will help spread awareness. And if you want to support the channel, in the comments pinned is a message to a PayPal link to me and channel membership here. If you simply want to catch up on recent coverage of my videos on this case, you'll be able to find that top right corner where the eye symbol is up there. But yeah, it's going to be a bit of a simplistic map analysis today, narrating over it, the ins and outs and possibilities, whilst bringing it back full circle, incorporating the newer findings in recent time, such as SB Vega's adventures with the other mineshaft, and also possibly talking about the filled-in mineshaft as well. There's some additional discussion videos that can be done about that. I might even do a live stream tomorrow or the day after. We'll just see how things go and what else happens, if there's anything shocking. But yeah, credit to the individual in the background that did leave a comment just recently suggesting that they wanted to see a video like this on a more simplistic scale. So that is what I'm going to do today. But just as a bit of a brief backstory, the whole concept to tracking Kenny Veach out there, as the girlfriend said, yes, the vehicle's going to be parked over there as expected. Yeah, you can go and find the vehicle out there, but it doesn't directly indicate what direction the person's gone in. And whilst the coins and the phone was found at the mineshaft, and whilst the girlfriend said, well, Kenny Veach wouldn't want to be traced or tracked, that's why he left it behind. Right. So take it with you and then drop it off. So it at least leads people so far up as a starting point when searching. Sounds like Kenny Veach is teasing people. If you truly don't want to be traced in the first place, you wouldn't even take your phone to begin with. So that's why it doesn't seem likely that Kenny would end his life in that circumstance. But furthermore, in terms of finding the coins and the phone at a mineshaft, vertical one, it wasn't down to Red Rock tracking the GPS, it was down to the scent. So ultimately, if Kenny Veach didn't want to be found in any shape or format, or didn't want to be traced to begin with, you can leave all your equipment, all your electrical tracking products and GPS at home, and you will still be traced within a time frame period when it comes to your own scent, body odor. The fact that Red Rock had dogs with them, search dogs, which picked up on Kenny's scent, ultimately leading up to the mineshaft, that speaks volume. So if Kenny never took his phone, they still would have ended up at the mineshaft based on Kenny's scent. So the whole claim by the girlfriend of not wanting to be traced or tracked is a load of BS, because you will still be traced or tracked. The only thing, as for an argument you could put across, is, did Sharon Pilgrim purposely report Kenny Veach 7 days too late, in hopes that when it comes to the scent, it would have gone cold, it would have worn out, it would have dispersed and gone, but it was still somewhat preserved out there. Now, we talked about how in an earlier video, if the search was done quicker, if Kenny was actually reported in sooner by the girlfriend, would the scent have gone any further? where you would think if the scent went on any further past the mineshaft, that would be considered the freshest scent. But then it would mean anything before that is old. And the older scent will go first before the freshest scent. Meaning, even under that circumstance, if the search team went out there, they would start at Kenny's vehicle and they wouldn't know where to go from there because they've got no scent to follow. But if they were airdropped at the mineshaft as a starting point, they're on the freshest scent and then they'll continue on from there. You've got to take that into consideration. Now, visually, it will make more sense. Let's head on over to Google Earth and then I can show you the distance of these locations and the whole concept of the mineshaft. What I will do first is explain it to you as for the markers. When it comes to the green ones, that's where there's an opportunity of caves to look at. Not quite to explore, because we've not seen any deep ones, but it's where caves have been caught on camera or where it's been suggested either by Kenny Veach and or other hikers. When it comes to the yellow line, as you see going up Little Jeremy Canyon, that is the scent which they followed. And I've done it at the furthest point, which was the furthest mineshaft. It was described as a vertical mineshaft, but there is more than one out there. So you could say it's one or the other. The fact is, Kenny Veach did not go over Wild Horse Pass based on the information that we've been given by Red Rock Search and Rescue. So it's like Kenny Veach didn't even get the chance to explore for the M Cave, which is rather odd. Down here, roughly, is where his vehicle could have been parked. I've chosen this area. Sometimes I move it a bit further down. It's nothing too specific, right? When zooming around here, there's a bit of a point where it goes off round the bend because the cars park up on the side. That's why it's a bit worn out, the ground. There's a bit of a fence line nearby, and I believe SB parked there at one point to simulate where Kenny Veach did too. And from this angle, facing this way, which would be slightly south, that's where Kenny Veach parked up, and you saw the footage of him, the unreleased one, where he got back to his vehicle, and he had his vehicle, the back end facing us, which we saw as he had his camera set up on his tripod. He got back the October hike to the vehicle, started drinking beer immediately and regretted it. So in this area is likely where his vehicle was parked for the final time. Now, any mention of whether the car was locked or unlocked or the situation with the car keys, I don't know about that, I can't remember. I remember the mention of there was nothing of interest found within the vehicle, just some papers here and there. But, you know, it's interesting, was the car locked or unlocked? Was the wallet, credit card there or anything like that? Because they tend to be items that can go missing or vanish in a missing person case or a true crime related one. And then up that way, Kenny Veach supposedly went because that's the way his scent followed. As for whether it be on the left-hand side of the canyon or the right-hand side of the canyon, which SB Vega's Adventures did in recent time, that's kind of unknown of. Is it a massive deal breaker? Not really, because you can cross over the canyon from left to right in areas where, you know, it's not too steep. But the first mineshaft of interest that we come across, which Kenny never acknowledged, which most other hikers haven't really captured on camera, might have been the odd one here and there, but SB did a closer analysis. It's not far from Jeremy Guzzler, which is on the left. We've got an agave burn pit. As you see there, it's an agave burn pit. And in this area, which is a bit raised to the ground, bit of like a hill, bit of a mound, if you want to call it that. As you can see, this is where the mineshaft is. I believe it's where that black hole area is. This isn't as deep as the main mineshaft, but it is a vertical mineshaft. And maybe at one point in the past it was deeper, but maybe not around the time of Kenny Veach, a bit before. It's just an interesting location because when you think of a mineshaft, the original one, people were so focused on that to now know that there is a second one out there. There's a second opportunity of the what ifs, the theories, the ideas, and you might as well lock into this one now when the other one is no longer accessible. It's interesting. So descent could have ended at this vertical mineshaft. You know, the news articles interpret it as the mineshaft from Kenny Veach's Cave hike video. But the original news report did not state that. The Red Rock Search and Rescue Commander, David Cummings, had said it ended the trail at a vertical mineshaft. To say a mineshaft means it could be one of many. It's not a specific one. And because we've got two vertical mineshafts here, it could be one or the other. Is it a major deal if it's the earlier one rather than the furthest one? I mean, in some ways, no, because both are before Wild Horse Pass. Both are before Pitcher Canyon and where the supposed M Cave can be located, as Kenny had described. The fact that Kenny didn't even go over Wild Horse Pass is what's questionable. The only thing you could argue is the less hiking distance, but put at a prominent place or a marker or a beacon, a place of interest, a location, if it was done on purpose by Kenny himself. Less distance covered, more efficient and more practical. If you don't plan on staying out there long and you don't even plan on hiking out there, you're probably going to cover the shortest amount of distance to do what you need to do. And if you've got two mine shafts and you're trying to stage a disappearance, then likely you're going to choose the closest one and not the furthest, just down to common sense. But of course, if one mine shaft is more shallow than the other, won't it come across as obvious that Kenny can't be down there? Well, if people wanted to put the point across where it could have been filled in, it could have been covered up with time, you'd never know. And, you know, at the end of the day, it could spark other mysteries, of course, as in, okay, Kenny's not in the mine shaft, but where else could he be? And then it leads to confusion. It leads to feeling lost and not knowing what to think, and then Kenny would benefit that way. That's if he chose to stage his disappearance in some way, stage a death, etc. But for this analysis, I've gone all the way up. The canyon over there is where the bullet, the rock cairn was at. And then, it's glitching out. Over the mountains, over there, the canyon, the Robin Canyon, is where SB did his hike in more recent time. We can refer to that a bit later. All the way up here, on the mound, slightly higher elevation, is the main mine shaft, what you see here. And this is where the scent ended at. The marker's just gone a little bit too far, but it's basically here. This is where the scent ended at, the mine shaft, just before Wild Horse Pass. What do you see around? Really, nothing. There's a prospect pit up there, which isn't deep. Looked like ground disturbance at one point in the past, and that was pretty much it. Really, not much going on in the area. So for Kenny Veach's scent to end here, seems a bit on a flat note, a bit of a climax. Any caves about? No, not to my knowledge, and from what other hikers have said, there's no caves around this area. Are there any vantage points where you got the ravines up that way where it gets steep, which is heading east? But Jay Chuck has been up there himself in the past and reported not seeing Kenny Veach, right? In addition, if the scent ended at the mine shaft, okay, it doesn't go on north anymore, but does it go east? Does it go west beside south? And Red Rock never acknowledged that. So you could interpret that as no. So if Kenny's scent ended at the mine shaft and did not branch off east, it meant Kenny did not go into the mountains to end his life and to hide. But because there's not really caves nearby this area, that Kenny didn't go into a cave to end his life either. And that as for the mine shaft, well, if Kenny tried ending his life in the mine shaft or falling in, his remains would be visible on show. And that it's hard to conceal yourself when you're already dead. You can't. that in the process of trying to end your life whilst concealing yourself, that is still quite difficult to do. If Kenny Veach was to really end his life out there, and that the scent did not go on any further to where he could hide or conceal himself, basically, Kenny, where his scent ended at, was in plain open sight. Yes, he could have double-backed on himself, we'll get to that later, but ultimately, if he was to end his life, he would have done it ground level, near or around the mineshaft. Yes, with time his bones and stuff could have been scattered by animals and wildlife, but within the time frame period of 10th of November to the 22nd of November, would human remains and bones be scattered that quickly? Maybe, maybe not. But one thing for certain that should have remained, besides the coins and phone, would be maybe his hat, clothing, backpack, tent, and of course, the gun. Whilst the remains broken down, the bones spread about by wildlife, the items that can't disintegrate or break down or animals wouldn't touch should remain near or around the mineshaft, like the coins and the phone. But that wasn't the case. So it seems like Kenny Veach decided to drop some items off here and kept hold of the other items. If that was to say, right, I'm using this marker and beacon to say I've come out this far, now my adventure and journey truly begins now, it wouldn't explain the scent ending here. The scent should continue on as it would be the freshest scent, ultimately meaning that likely Kenny double-backed on himself. Is it possible that if Kenny wanted to end his life, that he went so far up to either the main or other mineshaft, dropped the items off to give the impression that he's out there and he's gone on further, or so far, but then he double-backed on himself and branched off elsewhere to hide and end one's life? You could put that argument across. However, once again, Red Rock did not acknowledge whether it branched off west or east. So what I'm saying there is Kenny Veach puts his stuff here, and then he comes down here to where then? Going up one of the ravines on the left side, or west over there like Joe May Guzzler. It makes you think. But surely, if that was the case, the scent would have gone up that way and around. But it didn't. Or even that canyon, which SB did in more recent times, surely the scent would have gone up that way. But it wasn't acknowledged. So it seems pretty simple as to what happened based on that interpretation. That Kenny went so far up, left his items behind or so, and then came back the way he originally hiked up. And then what? Because if he was to end his life based on the scent and the tracking and just following the lead up and down, where that line is, it's all in open sight. So if he did it anywhere, it would have had to have been in open sight. If he did it in a concealed or hidden place, it just wouldn't be possible, because if it did, the scent should have branched off in a different direction then. But there's no reports of that. That's why it doesn't really make sense. So I want to know your thoughts down below in the comment section, because the reason why the general public, outsiders, will go along with the suicide aspect is because of the girlfriend claiming it and being the mouthpiece for Kenny Veach. Sure, Kenny could have been struggling, yeah, but Kenny isn't here to talk himself. And it was Sharon in the early days doing all the talking. And because she's a professional in the mental health field, just by nature, humans will listen and nod their heads and comply, because of that psychological influence that there is someone that appears to be in that profession. So it must mean that they're more knowledgeable. And if they're more knowledgeable, they know what they're talking about. And if you aren't in that field or of expertise, you're not going to know. So it's just easier to listen and follow along to what someone who you think is higher up and above you says. And sometimes even they aren't always right. With that based in mind, as simple as the map analysis is, it is such a mystery as to why Kenny Veach would go so far up and then the scent ends. Because if you're truly trying to look for the M cave, you'd think the scent would continue on. In some ways, it kind of proves two different things at the same time. It proves that Kenny Veach wasn't able to even continue in search of the M cave. That even if he went out there and that's what his goal, his directive was, he didn't even get the chance to get to the location. So something must have happened beforehand, correct? And also it goes to show as proof that Kenny didn't end his life out there, because based on the scent and the trail and where it ended at, and that Kenny wasn't found about, no bones, no blood, no gun, and even on the way back, and no scent splitting off elsewhere, he either went all the way up and then all the way back down and got picked up, or he went all the way up and then disappeared into thin air. And that was without his own choice, because, likely for Kenny, even if he wanted to end his life out there and he got so far up, would he be anticipating suicide by alien abduction or military intervention? No. Different case scenario if you had issues and everything was a mess and you might die by suicide, by shootout, by police, where you might pretend you've got a weapon drawn on you and then you charge at police. You're not intending on hurting anyone or the police, but you just want them to shoot you because you want to die so badly. But as for Kenny Veach, who's out there, I don't think Kenny would be thinking, right, I'm going to purposely do something to try and get abducted by aliens or military, because I don't think Kenny Veach really knew the bigger picture of what's possibly out there. So, what we do need to acknowledge with those additional markers that I said over Wild Horse Pass, which Kenny Veach did cover in his original hike video, and then coming down west to Picture Canyon, as you see down this way, to where the row of supposed caves are, or at least distinctive looking caves, even if they are shallow, from the M-shaped cave to the keyhole cave to the supposed covered up M cave in that particular order on the right side of the canyon. And then adjacent on the other side, you've got the cave that Kenny Veach was scared of. And then so far down, and this is just done very rough on the left, you had, around this area, you had the M cave which Jeff Clark came across and no one else has investigated since. And then you had that giant M-shaped ridge, which supposedly was some shallow caves. Basically, there's an opportunity to explore shallow caves. It might not be the M cave, but where else do you come across caves beforehand? Rarely, within reason. Skull Canyon up there, where there might have been the odd cave, but not too much. And then the only other place, as I said, down this way, Robbins Canyon up here, very steep, which SB did in recent time. And no specific area, but I just put the marker up this way to say up this canyon you supposedly have caves. And well, not supposedly, you do have some kind of caves, because Robin caught one on camera in the past, the original Robin. It was a fairly big sized cave, but not that deep. And there'll be some more here and there, and maybe down some of the other canyons on this side of the canyon. But it's important to acknowledge, because Kenny Veach also acknowledged it himself when in his October hike over Wild Horse Pass on lower ground down here, as he panned the camera around, he said, over that way, over those mountains, you've got caves, but the canyon I'm going down is down that way, which is Picture Canyon. He didn't give the names, but based on the location and where he was pointing to, you can find out the names that way round, such as with the maps. So when Kenny said over there's caves over the mountains, he meant on the other side here, where you got these canyons, where there are caves, and Robin caught one on camera in the past. So with Kenny Veach having full knowledge of where caves can be found at, whether it's the M cave or not, where Kenny Veach did his actual hike based on his scent left behind. He didn't really do much of a hike, and he didn't really go looking for any caves whatsoever because he was near no caves. You get what I'm saying? So if it seems like Kenny Veach didn't end his life out there because there's no proof or evidence of that physically out there. And based on the pattern of his scent, it wouldn't show that. And even if he did do it, based on the patterns, it would have had to have been in open plain sight. Because where the trail is, you can't conceal yourself. It's just open, flat-ish, with a gradient land, some mounds up and down and little hills, but there's no real concealment up Little Jermay Canyon unless you branch off one of the ravines or maybe Jermay Guzzler or somewhere where there's a bit more thick, dense vegetation higher up on the mountains, but the scent only went one way and it was rather simplistic. So it seems very unlikely that he ended his life under those circumstances. So if Kenny was genuinely going out there to hike to try and find the M Cave, then why did he not go on any further? Surely you would. He's done it before. Why would it be different this time round? Doing the same hike, maybe the same loop and route. Why would it be different this time round? At the furthest, the main mineshaft of Kenny Veach was here. All he had to do was go over Wild Horse Pass and drop down. And then all he had to do was go down Pitcher Canyon and maybe try looking for the cave again, which would probably be the same result as his original hike video. If there were any changes to the environment, by then it'd still be altered with and he wouldn't know and he'd be confused. Something must have happened or had to have happened at one of the mine shafts for his scent to end. If he didn't double back on himself, it's still very possible that he did. But let's just say you put that aside. How can one possibly go so far one way, not return back, and not go any further? They must be in that spot. And if they're not in that spot, then where the hell are they? They have literally been taken away, literally vanished into thin air. And how? How could that even possibly happen? Jeff Clark suggested maybe military involvement, the agencies, the ones above in more control. I know Jeff has his buzzwords and lines for that. I'm just wording it. I'm just wording it the way I do. So, in terms of if military came on in, such as by helicopter, landing, descending so far down, and then what? Kenny Veach being apprehended, intervention. Before Kenny got too close to the cave, but if they were observing which direction was he going in, oh, he's going the same way. He's approaching Pitcher Canyon likely, as he did the first time. Well, we best step on in now, whilst the canyon is still wide enough to drop on in. Because when it comes to Pitcher Canyon, it does become more narrow. So do it at the widest point to intervene before Kenny goes on any further to prevent him from maybe uncovering the truth. That's how it could be interpreted in one way. What we'll do quickly, distance check, because I know some viewers were wanting that. Roughly there, it's only a rough one. To the first mine shaft, it's about 1.65 miles from vehicle to first mine shaft. Any further, up to the main mine shaft, it's about 3.31 miles. Can vary a little bit, but it's just a rough one. Yeah, about 3.32, 3.31 miles in terms of the total distance. And then if he went there and back, you'd be doubling 3.32, which is still more manageable compared to the original hike that he did. Travis' neighbours had done this specific hike there and back from where he parked to the mine shaft. So there is that you take into consideration. But Travis did say in his words, when he got to the mineshaft, he was considering going on further to explore, but felt pretty beat up and thought, call it a day, which was probably a smart thing to do, because I'm not too sure, but I think maybe it's the first time Travis was out in that particular area, so it's not worth pushing your luck too much. You do the best you can and, go out there and maybe capture stuff and come back safely. But Travis did acknowledge the presence or the eerie feeling of phantom footsteps, and that's when going to the mineshaft or being in the area. I believe SB mentioned something similar previously. A separate video on that can be done at some point. SB brought up in conversation when he was closer to Joe May Guzzler around this area. Yeah. As he was panning the camera around from 2 months ago or so when investigating the mineshaft, he said, in this area, you got phantom footsteps and different hikers have experienced it. Do you notice a pattern emerging? And J Chuck mentioned it as well in the past when going up Little Mermaid Canyon. And I think, if I'm correct in saying, depending on the route that Sean Hallecker took in 2019, Sean, I believe, went up this way going north. Just flip the screen a little bit. Went up this way going north, over Wild Horse Pass, dropping on down, coming down Pitcher Canyon to approach where the supposed covered cave is. And then I think what he did was turn back round, back up Wild Horse Pass, and then past the mineshaft. Because I'm sure in his wording of his video, he said when he was going by the mineshaft and going down the canyon, this one south towards his vehicle, in the dark, he could hear footsteps. And to be honest, it would make sense, because going down Pitcher Canyon where those drops and descents are in the dark would be pretty dangerous. Depends on how dark it gets. If you're walking on somewhat flatter, more open land, you're best doing that in the dark compared to a very narrow canyon. I mean, Jeff Clark. Imagine if you had to do Robin's canyon hike in the dark. Yeah. So, I'll have to double check, but I'm sure this is what Sean did on the way back coming down this way. It seems like not only have a handful of hikers experienced phantom footsteps, paranormal activity, strange encounters without actually physically seeing it, only hearing it, feeling stalked, an eerie feeling and presence out there, and it happens around and near to the mineshaft where Kenny Veach's scent ended at. Is it possible that what hikers have felt and heard since is exactly what Kenny Veach experienced firsthand, but much worse, when he got to the mineshaft, and whatever was lurking about daylight approached Kenny, or somehow killed or took him away, never to be seen, and that's why his scent ended here. Something unimaginable, something unexplainable, in which Kenny came face to face with, not anticipating it, and that other hikers that have come on by here that have had similar encounters without the same extent as what happened to Kenny Veach. It's just that when you get separate hikers all experiencing the same thing, it implies the chances of something dark or mysterious out there more likely. Then if you manage to pinpoint it to a particular area, such as at or around near the mineshaft, an eerie feeling, what's the primary cause for that? I mean, okay, in the past, other times, paranormal activity, if it's to do with Native Americans, if there was like a house built upon a Native American grave from the past and very haunted and darkness and all of that. That might not be the case here, but it just so happens that where there's a mineshaft, there is an agave burn pit to do with to do with Indians in the past. You get what I'm saying? Is there any curses in the area? Is there any dark energy looming over? It makes you wonder. And even if it wasn't that one, the other mineshaft further down this way, here, That just so happens to have an agave burn pit too. So is there unexplainable activity, dark, mysterious activity going on out there, which Kenny Veach was there at the wrong place at the wrong time. He didn't get the chance to continue searching for the caves because something found him first. Whether it links to the cave, whether it links to military or not, there could be a standalone presence and force out there. And maybe many of the hikers since have just been lucky enough not to encounter it. Or if they did, the same could happen as what happened to Kenny Veach. Is that what Robin was pushing about the demons and winged creatures out there? It seems very hard to believe, but when you take it into consideration where the scent ended at, and it's around a location where hikers have heard phantom footsteps and weird, creepy, eerie feelings, it just makes you think, did Kenny experience more than anybody else? With taking that into consideration, to let that settle in, what we'll do briefly now is just catch up on some of the comments from my previous video, some of which may tie into Kenny's disappearance. Let's start from the bottom, work our way up. I have responded to some comments already. So so we got Vesna, welcome, Sweet Echoes, shout out to Sweet Echoes. Then this one, the problem with the theory that he ended his own life is unlikely, as Kenny did mention he does not want to be found. He has no means or tools to bury himself. True. SB said there are no caves that are more than a room to get into in this whole area, and he could not have gone very far without food or water. If he met with foul play, he would not bother to leave his phone and coins lying around conveniently, unless somebody else put them there to make it seem more normal, or like he's still out there when he's not. There's absolutely no trace of him to date. The only thing I'd like to see on your video, and there you go, that's what was done. Response-wise, quickly, the only person who claims Kenny made the statement, as Jeff says, never to be found, is Sharon Pilgrim, and that's true. What else do we have here? Josh, Kenny walked to the mineshaft, left his phone and doubled back, same route to an awaiting vehicle. That's why the search dog only has his scent at the mineshaft and road. This whole thing is foul play, hoax. It can come across that way, of course, but the only other way of looking at it would be Kenny went one way and did not double back because he vanished into thin air around the mineshaft. One way or the other is possible. Gene, understatement, if an enemy of mine is missing, okay. Elnet, my theory was that he was under financial distress, as evident by him trying to sell his house. Yet in his video he mentioned that he wanted to stay in the house. I think that he left his car and phone and change was to throw off the trail. Tracker dogs can lose scent of a target. Google it. I think personally he'll be found in a place like Slab City. Is that California? Look it up. There are many there on the run from the law or homeless, and they have deep distrust of LEA and tend to keep to themselves. And like jail, you keep your mouth shut and don't ask questions over there. Right. Okay. Keith, thank you for the breakdown and expansion. You're welcome, Keith. Shout out to them. The robber, not Kenny, much too young and wrong facial proportions. He does not grab his injured knee, he's grabbing for something that is falling down the inside of his pant leg that falls onto the floor. And then he did not break in to get the iPad, he grabbed it as an afterthought on the way out. The break-in is just more distractions from Susan, and the other hoax claims it's not a hoax. And then I just talked about the iPad. And Jeff said probably 90% of stores and even private people leave devices on charge constantly. I do it a lot myself. I guess I must be a very boring person, because when it comes to nighttime, I'm going to make sure things are turned off. I never charge anything overnight, and I certainly keep my phone turned off overnight as well. I must be boring. Anyway, Jeff, Sharon waited so long because she was afraid of the questions that the police would ask her. If you are a professional counsellor for homeless drug addicts, why were you dating a 17-year younger guy who you now claim had mental problems, including being suicidal? why would you let someone who you claim is suicidal go on a solo hike out into the wilderness? Yeah, it can damage your credibility, and it can also be a conflict of interest as well. I get it. She feared having to answer those questions, but it seems that the police did not ask them anyway. June, then, if true, she put herself and her fragile ego before a man who was missing and or could be dead in the desert. That was not the time to think of herself. Shameful woman. Yeah. Jeff says, don't feel bad, ref. None of these news articles even mention Sean Horlacher either. True. Like him or not, Sean is the only person who publicised this case for at least a year after the end of the official search. And he kept it going for years even after I showed up. Without Sean Horlacher, none of us would have ever heard of M-Cave or Kenny Veach. Well, let me just make one thing crystal clear, Jeff Clark. I never heard of Sean Horlacher until 2020, when I started covering the Kenny Veach case. I first heard about the Kenny Veach case from a YouTube channel called, I believe, DJ Cook. C-O-O-K, just for reference. And it was just a mystery channel that talked about different cases, mysteries, missing people. And in 2015, DJ Cook did a video on Kenny Veach. That's how I found out about the case and the M-Cave. And then from then, on and off, I looked at other mystery videos about the case of Kenny Veach, maybe some news articles here and there, maybe some maps as well. And at some point, I would have looked at Kenny Veach's channel back then when he had multiple hike videos on his YouTube channel before they disappeared onwards, right? So, yeah, for most people, Sean Horlacher's presence guided people into the case in learning. But me, I'm different. I learned about the case differently. I learned about the case from other people before Sean Horlacher. I only knew of Sean in 2020 and realised I've got a lot of videos to catch up with. It might also come down to the YouTube algorithm, as in what's suggested or recommended to you, and Sean's videos weren't recommended to me. In terms of liking him or not, I didn't have a problem with Sean. It's just that there was a time or moment where I just wanted to defend myself and just make observations just for the awareness purposes, and that was it. To document changes in human behaviour with time, because I, myself in life, have been royally, absolutely fucked and screwed in the past, and I thought, you know what, I'm not going to allow it. I'm not going to possibly allow it to happen, or something like that. It's all fine then. Ever since, it's all fine. But, yeah. We've got Shazza. Shout out to Shazza. Did mention about the doors, so watch out, Shazza. We've got Snooping New York Hyperactive. FEMA suggests you watch your own video. Ooh, someone suggesting that I watch my own video. I think I've seen my face enough, thank you very much. I get bored of hearing my voice at times. But no, yeah, I know what you're referring to though. Blackgate Canyon, which is kind of like east of the beginning of Little Jomay Canyon. And as said, that's where, from the words of Gene Lukowski, a private search was done, I think maybe in 2021 of January. And the leader was called Kenneth Yeager. A team was searching for another missing person, and it was a private search. They found a femur bone at Blackgate Canyon and later turned out to be an animal femur bone. So yeah. We've got some Chinese. There we go. Is Kenny alive? I really hope Kenny comes back alive. Well, there's some material to suggest he is alive or was alive up to some point, but there's also material to suggest he is not. Or theories, I should say. June, I go back and forth that Kenny is still alive and wanted just some peace, and or he took a slightly different route and was hurt, trapped, died. I think of that because of the man that took a wrong turn on a hike he did many times and was not found for 20 years. Okay, thanks for sharing your thoughts, June. Someone there. We've got Lena Howery. I must say that I appreciate your videos and thank you for your dedication. You're welcome, and it's good that you're here watching. Appreciate that. Atrium Prime. As my father would say, the difference between a professional and an amateur is whether anyone has paid you for your effort. For YouTube, I'd say that would translate as to whether you are part of the partner program or not, also known as have over 500 subscribers. As someone who is only 31, I call myself an amateur or a hobbyist. Ah, okay, fair enough. Atrium is regarding to my suggestion question from that news article, as in what makes a YouTuber amateur, what makes them more established. Fair enough. Yeah. Well, to have over 500 subscribers, you would not be a part of the YouTube partner program truly. By having 500 subscribers plus, it allows you to receive gifts or certain monetary gifts to a very small extent. But in terms of adverts, which non-monetized channels still have adverts because YouTube are greedy and just shove them out there regardless. But you know, to become a part of the partner program, you need 1,000 followers, subscribers onwards. And you also need about 4,000 watch hours within the last month or two, I think. The other thing is, a bit of a side topic. I'm sorry about this. I'm fucked at the moment. Let's come back again. The other thing is, with TikTok, I'm also trying to grow there. It's a lot more difficult to do. You do need 10,000 followers, which is crazy. I know people could say, well, you've got 17,000 on YouTube. That's 17,000 subscribers over the course of from 2013 onwards. Very slow, dragged out, a slow, hard grind with time, steady. TikTok is a completely different thing. It's very, I don't know, it's just difficult. But I try and get videos out there over there too, to spread the awareness in general for the cases. But yeah, I'd be considered small in terms of the channel aspect. Mousetrap, thank you so much, Raf, for your time doing these videos. I appreciate your hard work. It's good to see you, Mousetrap, and still about. So yeah, you're welcome. More videos to come, and I hope you enjoy them. We've got Roger. I can confirm Kenny is alive and well. He was indeed spotted around 3 years north area of the area after the last hike, offering someone the water like someone stated in the comment, as I was hiking around the same time and saw a guy who looked exactly like on Kenny videos, and he was accompanied by a woman. Do we have any hard evidence, photos, videos of that? I mean, yeah, we can listen to it, but still be somewhat skeptical. And then a person called Mark. There was a second sighting of Kenny 3 years after his disappearance north of the M Cave area by another hiker. Kenny offered him water. He claims it was him, had him on video. Do you know anything about that? Can confirm Kenny Veach is alive and well. I'm sure I've seen that account, Roger, before in the past. I mean, does it give a history of previous comments? No, it doesn't. But I don't know. I'm sure I've seen this individual in the past. I don't know if that's a good thing or not. But in terms of Mark, are you referring to Driven X Adventures some time ago that claimed to have come across Kenny and captured it on camera? Is that what you're referring to? You let me know. So as you can see, while some people believe previously from other comments that Kenny could have been kidnapped, taken away from the area because of the scent situation, today's comments from, well, catching up from recent video, has suggested Kenny double-backed on himself and was picked up elsewhere, that he's alive and well, but elsewhere. So whether it's the concept of Kenny being taken by force, killed and taken, or him making his own decision to pretend to be out there and then walking away, it kind of leads to the same conclusion that there are a handful of people that don't think it's down to him ending his own life. I mean, when you think of the Rebecca Zahau case and it comes across as suicide, but there's a possibility that it was staged to make it look like it was self-inflicted when it was by the hands of somebody else, is it possible that another person or group tried staging it with Kenny to make it seem like either he did do that to himself out there or that he's just simply out there. And that explains why the coins and the phone was placed down, because that wasn't Kenny's choice. Someone else made it for him and put it there. So, yeah, maybe Kenny isn't in the desert whatsoever, but he was at some point, such as on his hike. And that explains the scent. But in terms of it ending abruptly, that's what's strange on the surface level, because if there's no evidence to suggest ending one's life, the only other reason why you would likely be out there is trying to finally find the M cave. And the fact that he didn't get anywhere near to the possible area, because he didn't even get to go over Wild Horse Pass based on the scent situation, something out of his own control must have occurred. And it explains as to why there's no sign of his body and no sign of his additional gear either. But specifically, coins and phone being placed down is unusual. Why weren't the other items placed down too? I think Susan Veach may have made a post about that. Maybe I do a video on it, focusing in on. I think I did a bit of coverage from a live stream, but you didn't actually see her comment, so maybe we can refer to that at a later point. But I just wanted to do this video, keep it a little bit lighter, because we've been really heavy with full-on breaking news back-to-back over the last week or two. It's been crazy. And I know there might be some people here and there that are returning back, watching my videos after some time away or not available. You've got a lot of catching up to do, but don't worry, it's all under control. Full playlist up there, including the recent videos. With that being said, hopefully you enjoyed this one. Feel free to hit the thumbs up, share the video, that'd be appreciated. And if you want to hype the video too on mobile, then feel free. Likely the next thing that will be done could well be a live stream, and then followed by a very important video on Kenny Veach in regard to his original hike, which I found something within it. So keep your eyes out, and I'll see you next time. My name's Wallite Ref. Goodbye, good night for now.